Welcome back to this week's edition of Modern Tech and Transformation. This week, we're going to be talking about tech challenges in enterprises and common trends in the marketplace. And we have a new face with us, Robert Ford. Thank you for being with us, Robert.
Thanks, Carla. Appreciate it.
So Robert has years of experience in the industry, and since it's his first time, I'm going to give him the chance to introduce himself.
Oh gosh, thanks. So 25 years of doing this is a long time, and I told myself when I got into this that I didn't know if I'd be in it for this long because I'm a coach's kid by nature, so I thought I'd be doing something in sports, but I love it, and you never know who you're going to talk to. You never know which company's going to call and have a need or have a challenge or have a problem or have a dilemma. And coming to RTS has been great because we're really good at answering the bell when it comes to what the challenge may or may not be. So, yeah. IT is this crazy thing that once you're in it, it's hard to get out of it.
I can relate.
Because there's not that you can't leave. It's just there's just so much to do, right? And technology's ever changing, and there's I think about over the years, right? There was Y2K, then there was the internet, and then there was, cloud now and security, and all of these things keep piling on, and it tells companies that they have to continue to reinvest. It tells companies they have to continue to invest in their people. It has to invest in their partnerships. And a company like RTS, we can do a lot for companies. And I think our biggest challenge is getting to everybody because there's so much of it out there.
Yes.
Right.
There's definitely no lack of work.
No, absolutely not.
So as you're working with these different enterprises and clients, what are the top 3 most common challenges you're hearing about?
Oh, gosh. I think it's very industry specific, right? So being in Houston, being heavy oil and gas, being heavy engineering, people have always said that oil and gas is a laggard when it comes to technology. And while on the surface you may agree to that, I think they're a laggard when it comes to high tech or when it comes to financial services or when it comes to healthcare. But if you ask any oil and gas executive, they say, oh yeah, we're doing just fine, right? We're making sure that we're investing in the field and we're investing in security or we're investing in things that keep our people safe, whether it be a refinery or a plant or whatever the case may be. And so I think now they're starting to realize that they've answered that question, but the other question is some of the things that everybody else has been dealing with, cloud and financial operations. And I guess you could always say security is going to be everybody's challenge because security, there's a lot of smart people out there that are trying to do things that companies like us are trying to prevent from happening. And so I think that's always going to be a big thing. But I think part of post-COVID is people, right? I think more than ever, people is something that companies are having to pay more attention to now. And that's both internally and externally, right? How do we retain our talent? How do we keep our talent motivated? How do we keep our talent excited about what they're doing, right? And I think companies have always paid attention to that, but I think in this post-COVID world, it's different. And it's hard to explain, but it's just different.
And with talent, what are some common gaps you're seeing when you talk to end users or enterprises, clients?
I don't know if there's a lot of gaps. I think companies are just fighting with themselves internally because typically oil and gas companies can just plant a flag and, say a university and plant a flag and everybody's going to come and say, oh, I want to join Exxon, or I want to join Chevron, or I want to join ConocoPhillips. Whereas that's not necessarily the case anymore because Amazon is doing that and Microsoft is doing that and Salesforce is doing that and all these tech companies are doing that. And so it's a price war, it's a talent war, and companies are having to reinvent themselves internally with HR and other things to be more attractive. And it's not necessarily always about how much you can pay somebody. It's what are you going to do for them while they're there, right? I think our parents' generation thought of jobs differently than we do
Absolutely.
now. And I think companies took a while to address it, really. I think they just always felt like, well, there's the banner, that's who you work for. And everybody was like, that's fine, that's good. But loyalty is not really what it used to be. And so I think that's where consulting companies have been able to take advantage of that now because there's always going to be opportunity, right? Companies can never hire enough. Companies can never try to do everything by themselves anymore. And so, are we doing the right things to be prepared for that? Do we have the service offerings, all the things that I talked about in our little tool bag? Do we have the things that are important to that said company? And I think that's probably our biggest challenge as a consulting firm is, what do we want to be good at? What do we want to do? And then once we figure that out, how do we then market that? So with you being in marketing, how do we make sure that everybody on the street knows what we're good at? And then from a talent perspective on our own, we have to find the same people that everybody else is trying to find. So what makes RTS attractive? What makes us a unique fit for their career? And I think that's everybody's probably their number one challenge moving forward is just people.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I think it's hard to find good people.
It is.
And there's certain characteristics, like dependability is huge for me, right? And like that's not something you can teach someone. They either have it or they don't. But with that being said, you said determine what you're really good at. So I know Resolve Tech Solutions is really good at SAP, modernizing legacy systems, and integrating AI.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that first topic, SAP. What kind of strides and trends are you seeing in the SAP world right now? Aside from, we've talked about the S/4HANA migration. That's the big elephant in the room.
I think the biggest issue that every company has, because they all have to have an ERP, right? And at some point they're going to make the decision of which ERP they're going to go with. And if they're going to talk about SAP, then people see the cost. People have heard stories. People have had a friend that's worked at a competitor or said, hey, we went through an ERP transformation and it was awful. And so what I always would tell companies that are going through maybe their initial ERP is your company ready? And I'm not meaning from a technology perspective, but are the people and is the culture ready to go on that journey? Because that journey is difficult. That journey is hard. And if the culture isn't ready, the technology will eat you alive. And so the companies that have a strong culture, that have strong leadership, they tend to win out because they have partners that are with them every single day that are going to make that journey less strained, less painful, really. And so that would be the biggest thing that I would ever tell anybody that's higher up at a company is if once you make your decision and you live with your decision, do you have the right people around you to be successful, right? And that's as hard as picking which technology to use because there's a lot of ERP partners out there. And so picking the one that's going to be with you, that's going to not treat this as an 8-to-5 job is the ones that are going to win. Once you've selected and let's say you're now looking at an upgrade or a migration of some sort, those same questions come back. Is your culture ready to go through the amount of change that's going to go on by migrating or upgrading or whatever the acronym we want to use for the question? And so you're almost having to reinvent yourself again. So companies can't think, well, we did it great the first time, it's going to be just as great the second time. That's not necessarily true. And so again, leadership, partnerships, internal staff, we all have to be on the same page to be prepared to win. Being a coach's kid, it's all about winning, right? And winning comes in all shapes and sizes. But in technology are we satisfying our customers and are we affecting our bottom line? And if we can say we're not affecting our customers, but we're affecting our bottom line, then we're winning, right? And so I think that's the biggest thing is just be prepared, right? And you'll never know if you're really prepared. You just kind of have to just go and just have faith that leadership and partnerships are aligned on the vision.
And it's important. One thing you get with the consulting firms and the experts is most of them have done it before, right?
Absolutely.
Whereas for some organizations, it could be their staff's first time. So having that experience is incredibly relevant as companies are implementing or modernizing their ERP systems.
Agreed.
And the other thing that, we said, we're really good at is AI and implementing it in POCs. What are some common AI use cases that you're hearing about as you attend different functions, speak to different clients?
It's interesting. There is never going to be a limit to the use case, right?
Mhm.
There's always something, and we'll just use oil and gas since we're in Houston, right? You know, companies are all about acquiring acreage, right? How do we put more people on the ground in West Texas or in Delaware or in the Dakotas or wherever the case may be that you may have people working? And it's how do we get it out of the ground faster, more efficiently? How do we get it to the refineries? And then how do we get it into people's homes, cars, whatever the situation may be? And I think every company grapples with that concept differently. They all think that they're the great at getting it out of the ground, or they may be the great at midstream, or they may be the greatest when it comes to downstream. And we're all having to, again, I'm going to use reinvent again. We're going to always have to continue to reinvent ourselves because we have to continue to get better. We have to continue to put dollars, put technology, put process, evaluate technology so that AI can then do what it can do. If your processes are not ready for AI, then you're going to fail. If your data is not ready for AI, you're going to fail. If your people are not ready for AI, you're going to fail. And I think companies sometimes go too fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think companies want to do it. They just don't know how to do it. They don't know where to start. They don't know who to talk to, right?
Yeah.
They all go to conferences. They all have partnerships and alliances and all of these things, the same things that we do. And evaluation is so critical. And I always tell people, don't buy anything to solve a use case. You need to be buying things to solve multiple use cases. And if you don't have multiple use cases yet, then it's okay to slow down and hit the brake and pause and say, what else could we do? What other departments, whether it be HR, procurement, IT, marketing, operations, doesn't matter. They all have use cases, right? How do we apply it?
Yeah, and the digital maturity assessments that we do address that.
They're powerful.
Exactly.
They're very powerful.
They're definitely a worthwhile exercise and investment.
They are.
No, this was all really good information. And I think some things at a high level that organizational leaders can think about, and it might keep them up at night too. But one thing on a personal note, I want to circle back to, if you were a coach, what would you coach?
So my dad's a football coach and was my entire life. Still alive, but yeah, he's been a football coach my entire life, both collegiately and at the pro level. And so I try to apply a lot of those same things that I've learned from the greats, Jimmy Johnson and Barry Switzer, and gosh, just to name a couple. But football is not about how explosive you can be. It's about being methodical. It's about being tactical. It's about being, how many first downs can we make? Can we advance the ball down the field? And I think technology is a lot of the same thing. How do we become very methodical about what we do? How do we be the very best at that? Right? And then when we're that, what else can we be the very best at? And so trying to apply some of those things to be 10 yards, 10 yards, 20 yards, 10 yards, 20 yards. There's not very many 90-yard plays in a playbook. They happen once a game if you're lucky. But how many first downs does everybody talk about? That's what everybody's goal is, because if you get enough first downs, you're probably going to win. And so in technology, how do you apply the little things? People, process, technology. Get good at those three things. Everything else will fall in line.
I feel very inspired now. No, that was great. But thank you, Robert, for coming on.
Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, it was great.
And we will see you all next week. Thanks.